Hello from wherever you might be watching us from. Welcome back again to another edition of Qsports here on QTV. And I am sitting in for your regular host, Mumudu Kachaka. I am Ansmani Sonyasi. And with me in the studio today is, well, our very own boss, Mr. Adedrami, who will help us rather, go through what promises to be a very, very interesting show today. Mr. Ade, good evening and welcome to the program.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. And I hope we'll be able to make up for the absence of our colleague Mumudu Kachaka.
Well, we'll give it a try. Tonight we'll be looking at some very interesting topics, beginning with, well, what we're all looking forward to, the AFCON. Yeah. We'll go through the group stages and, of course, news around the AFCON as we look forward to its start next month, early next month, January 9 to be specific, and then we take a look at some very, very, very important news, as well as an African legend, not just his a legend in his home country, but I would say Africa. Samuel Eto'o, has been elected Cameroonian, which is quite welcoming. And we'll also take a look at the FIFA Arab Cup as well, which has been started on the 30th of November, and then to what has been the most talked about, news, especially football, which is the Champions League redraw. So, very interesting topics, Mr. Ade.
Very interesting indeed. And if you look down, we must apologize. This all seems to be all about football.
Indeed, yes. I can promise you it is not by design.
This is it. It's just that a whole bunch of interesting things have happened in the space of the last few days. So, of course, we have to deal with them. But, yeah, it's a thrill to be here. Sure.
All right. So, we go through the AFCON group stages.
Sure.
25 days to go.
25 days to go. We're all counting down. We're all excited. If you live here in the Gambia, of course, it's the first time that we've qualified. So great excitement for us. But when you look across the groups, really, there are some, teams that are sort of outstanding favorites. And there's at least a couple of group of death, as people tend to call them. Group D, you have Egypt and Nigeria. Although having said that, when you look at Nigeria's recent performances, I for one, I've been quite vocal in criticizing. I've not been impressed.
Sure.
Quite the opposite for Egypt. Even if the Arab Cup, we'll be talking about that. Even when Egypt has played mainly its Chan team, they've looked really, really good. But we can delve into that in some detail. And of course, if you're from West Africa, you're thrilled because so many West African teams have qualified.
Absolutely, I think this is the biggest West African contingent we'll ever have. And we've ever had rather. In a CAF competition, but you're very, very much on spot there. Countries like Nigeria, they used to be very dominant, as far as African football is concerned. However, we'll go through the group stages now.
Sure.
Groups, shortly, beginning with Group A, where the host country, Cameroon, would be playing against Burkina Faso, and then you have Ethiopia and Cape Verde. Your Cape Verde.
My Cape Verde. Cameroon, I think, would probably be favourites in that group in any instance, but particularly playing at home. And they've got quite a good team at the moment. They're, I think, overwhelming favourites for that group. I don't see many upsets in that group in terms of who's going to top it. But football can surprise you, and that's why we're drawn to it, because if it was predictable, we would be watching something else. It can be unpredictable.
And Burkina Faso has recently been doing very well as well. In fact, they are being managed by Gambia's former coach, Pol Pot, who, has been the closest coach we've ever had to, qualify the country. Unfortunately, he didn't succeed.
It didn't happen,
but yes. He's also one who has experience. We look at Group B: Senegal, Zimbabwe, Guinea, Malawi. Another interesting group.
Another interesting group. Again, as with Group A, I think Senegal would have to be red-hot favourites for that one.
Clear favourites, really.
If they didn't top it, I think that would be one of the shocks of the tournament. The team is in red-hot form. Great bunch of players. Starting 11, and you look at the bench. almost as impressive. So yes, I think we have to take them to win that particular group.
And Guinea as well?
Well, Guinea, I mean, you know, and it's the funny thing is, you know, a lot of times when these West African teams play each other, they tend to be quite tight affairs. Sure. You know, they're not the kind of walkovers. If you looked at their kind of FIFA rankings, you know, Senegal are much higher ranked than Guinea, and yet these always tend to be really quite close affairs. And it always surprises people as to why that is. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, no disrespect to Zimbabwe and Malawi, but I think Senegal and Guinea, you know,
I think should probably really be the first and second in that order. Senegal and Guinea, I suspect.
Guinea too, since the Pascal Fenduno generation, really they haven't been doing, you know, very well compared to, you know, their performances in the past. But I think, I mean, Guinea with Senegal, I think I see them, I mean, making it through this group.
I'd have to agree with you, and we're talking about Guinea-Conakry in this particular instance. We'll come to the other Guineas that have qualified as well.
So one team that played against Gambia in the qualifiers, two very interesting games, is Gabon. They are in Group C with Morocco, Ghana, and Comoros. Comoros are also first timers, right?
First timers shocked everybody, not just that they qualified, but the way in which they qualified. They played really attractive football. I watched some of their matches, and in a way, it's kind of another small, you know, footballing nation. It reminded me of Madagascar in the previous tournament, when Madagascar were first time qualifiers and got all the way to the quarterfinal. Shocked everybody. And you know, for me, I think it'd have to be Morocco and Ghana. But again, as I said, football can be unpredictable. But
so along with Gambia, I mean, they are one of the first timers. I mean, surprises in this year's
that's right. You know,
AFCON. So we look forward to watching them play. I mean, in the tournament. And yes, earlier we did mention Nigeria. They are in Group D with Egypt, Sudan, and
Guinea-Bissau. Our near neighbor.
Our near neighbors.
Sudan,
another interesting group.
Yeah, I mean, Sudan again is one of these teams that played really well in the qualifiers, but I know it's not the same team that will be representing them in the AFCON that played in the Arab Cup, but they weren't that impressive in the Arab Cup. That's just still on its way. So in that group, I think you'd have to take Egypt first, possibly Nigeria in second. Again, if that isn't how it panned out, I think that would be a shock.
Yeah, I mean, they are one of the biggest teams on the continent.
Of course, and they've got probably the world's best player right now, Egypt.
You look at their records as well in the tournament, you know, I think they're clear favourites from that group as well.
For sure.
But we might be in for surprises anyway.
You never know.
Yes, so we look at another group where you have Sierra Leone, I mean, Equatorial Guinea, Algeria, and Cote d'Ivoire.
Yeah.
Cote d'Ivoire, Sierra Leone, Algeria.
Yeah,
so teams with experience.
Again, you know, Cote d'Ivoire, another West African country. Sierra Leone, of course, my home country.
Yeah.
Of course, the holders and defending champions, Algeria. They've looked really impressive in qualifying, and I'm glad these days that, you know, both in the World Cup and in AFCON, you know, you have the holders having to qualify, like before they qualified automatically. I think it's good because it gives them that competitive edge. And I think Algeria clear favourites in that group, and I think Cote d'Ivoire would have to be, you know, second favourites in that particular group. Yeah.
So well, we look forward to that as well. It's certainly one of those very interesting groups as well. And finally, Group F, where you have our Gambia, Tunisia, Mali, and Mauritania. Again, another interesting group.
Another near neighbor, Mauritania. I think, you know, Gambia, you know, if I've said this many times before, I've been quite astounded at the sort of talent that Gambia has been able to produce, given its size. And really, if the team can gel, I think they could be one of the teams that could provide a shock. I'm not just saying this to make Gambians feel happy. I've been really impressed with the team. And if they really get it together, then they really could do something. But I think you'd have to say, on paper, at least Tunisia and Mali are probably favourites for that group. But hey, let's hope we get a couple of shock draws and a win and go through at least to the next round. Yeah,
and Gambia's first game would be against Mauritania on the 12th.
That's right.
The tournament starts on the 9th, and then 3 days later Gambia plays against Mauritania.
That's right, and you know, you have to go into this game, each game, thinking we want to win this, you know, and I keep saying this, when you go into a tournament and you qualify for the first time, don't come along saying we're here just to enjoy it. go as far as you can go, you know, and give it your everything. And, you know, like they say, you know, when you leave the pitch, you leave every drop of sweat on the pitch. So that's what we want from them.
Well, we're hoping for, I mean, a very good outing in Cameroon, and I mean, wishing the team the very best of luck.
We wish them all the best, and really looking forward to it.
And just before we move on to some other news, I mean, there's been rumor, especially online, that the tournament might be, you know, moved to some other time, and even the host country as well, you know. But CAF have come out to dispel those rumors.
They've come out to dispel it, and because what they did was, when they had the Chan tournament, which was for the home-based players, of course they used Cameroon as a kind of guinea pig to test the stadia. And all of them passed with flying colours. They had really good crowds. The stadium facilities all got, you know, the green light. But as you rightly say, in the last few weeks or so, things have started appearing online, saying that it was going to. And some people think it's been political, because there's this kind of Anglophone, Francophone crisis in Cameroon. And in fact, there was an article in Deutsche Welle saying that the tournament should be postponed. Just last weekend, it got quite a lot of criticism, that article, including from me, really. But, you know, CAF were compelled to come out and say, absolutely not. The tournament is going ahead as planned, and in the stadia as planned, on time, and at the moment there are no plans to cancel it. Talking
about Cameroon, I mean, African football legend, former Cameroonian striker. He played for Barcelona, for Milan, for Chelsea. He's been elected president of the Cameroonian Football Federation.
And you know what? We have to give a big thumbs up to them for doing that, because you and I know that in Sierra Leone, Mohamed Kalon went for the Sierra Leone one. He didn't get it.
I remember
in Cote d'Ivoire, Drogba. You know, and so, you know, for one of these guys to go and get it, and he's come with some very ambitious plans. I mean, you know, whether he'll be able to deliver, he's going to build 10 new stadia, etc., etc. We wish him all the best, and a great player in his day.
I think it's a good thing to have all these African football legends given an opportunity to be part of the, I mean, administrative structures of our football. You know, at least these are people who've played, they've been very successful in their careers, they understand. I think it's a good thing.
And you just said the magic word there, they understand, because a lot of the times when you hear footballers criticizing some of the people who are in administrative positions in African football, you always hear them saying, well, they never played the game, that's why they don't understand what players are going through. You know, like they will make ridiculous demands on players, they'll make, you know, ridiculous fixtures where they have to travel 20 hours before they get there, and they say, these people have never been players, that's why they've done it. But now you have somebody who's played at the highest level, and he understands it, and he's young enough that his retirement wasn't that long ago. So he knows what you know, the modern footballer is going through.
I think it's a good thing. In fact, he won against, I mean, Mr. Njoya, who was the interim president.
That's right. Yes.
Wow.
So
he won by 43 votes to 41, to 31 rather.
That's right. So it wasn't close, but from the reports that I read, he seemed to have presented a really persuasive case, and they embraced his vision. We wish him well.
There you go. I mean, great legend of the game, Samuel Eto'o, and we're wishing him the very best of luck. And this couldn't have come at a better time when his country is hosting the AFCON. So
that's great.
And that is why he said he's going to remember this moment forever.
Absolutely, and so will we.
All right, so we move on now to another very interesting competition, the FIFA 2021 Arab Cup, which began on November 30th. It is expected to end on the 18th of next month, of this month rather.
Of this month, and I have to say, and I even went public with this, I was one of these people who criticized it. I mean, FIFA said, you know, because it's like, well, okay, what are they going to come up with next? An English Cup, you know, for English-speaking nations. So essentially this was for Arab-speaking nations, and essentially all the Arab-speaking nations around the world, you know, got invited to it, and we've now reached the semi-final stage. And the reason I say I hold my hands up, because when I criticized it, I thought, hang on a minute, why don't I watch it and then see if I still have reason to criticize? And you know what? Almost 3 goals a game scored in the matches played. Some fantastic football. Teams like Jordan, Palestine have shocked me with the quality of their football against the bigger nations, Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia, and so on. And you know, but I think the one that had everybody gasping was in the quarterfinal when Qatar the host nation. They beat United Arab Emirates 5-0, and it was 5-0 at half time.
It's really interesting and very impressive how some of these Arab nations that are not really known within the football world have taken up so much interest in football, and they're investing big time in football. And we're beginning to see these results for teams like Qatar coming in and really impressing. I think it's been a remarkable journey for some of these countries.
It really has, and I think what's also been good is that you've got a mixture of youth experience. So some of the teams, they've used some of their experienced players, and then they've used young players like Hannibal, who plays for Man United. He's there, and blended it with their Chan teams, and so it's and you've got players now who are now saying, this is my stage. So I'm trying to remember the guy's name, one of the Egyptian forwards. He hadn't played for 8 years. He came on, and in 2 substitute appearances, he scored twice.
Wow.
And now he says, I hope I'm in the coaches planning for the AFCON. So, for some of them, that's what they, some of the African Arab nations, that's what they use. But as I said, been really, really exciting, and looking forward to it. Algeria, holders of the AFCON, they had a really tight match against Morocco. Great game, 2-2 it ended, and Algeria won 5-3 on penalties to go to the semi-final. So really looking forward to those.
All right, so we'll be following the Arab Cup very closely, and be sure that we'll keep you up to date with developments. As the competition proceeds. But we'll talk about the Champions League draw. Redraw rather, briefly. But in a moment, the under-20 World Cup qualifiers, Gambia, unfortunately, having lost, the first leg 3-0, the second leg was even worse for us, 6-0 against Morocco.
I was going to say, do we really have to talk about this one? But we must.
We have to.
Because there are certain oddities about it. Yeah. They lost the first leg 3-0, and they were comprehensively outplayed in that game. Yeah. Anybody watched it, they were lucky to get away with 3-0. And so you feared for them. But they didn't come home, bring the Moroccans here. Yeah. They stayed there to play the second leg of it. And it was even worse when you thought, maybe they'd kind of learned a few tricks from how the Moroccans, but in fact, it seemed the other way around. The Moroccans seemed to have worked them out, and this time just blew them away.
If you look at Gambian female football, of recent, we've been really making progress.
Indeed.
And have had a few achievements here and there. But whenever we play in international competitions, it's always difficult.
Sure.
I'm not sure the reasons why. Does it have to do with the exposure that others have, the infrastructure? Is it the resources that are at their disposal that we don't have? I'm not sure really the reasons why. But the last time we played in a World Cup proper, that was the first time ever. Yeah. We were booted out in the group stages and lost, almost every game by huge margins against our opponents. We seem to be struggling at the international stage.
This time I would give the girls, the women, the under-20 women, a kind of pass, because they came up against a very good team. Yeah. Some of these women they came across, this is their profession. Yeah. They are professional footballers. They're not amateurs, and so this is their trade. And so for them, in fact, they would have thought, how come we only won the first game 3-0? 3-0, yeah. We should have won it by more, and they really showed. And they are a very good side, and they would beat a lot of sides in Africa, having watched them, to be honest. And so, it's to do with all sorts of things. It's about exposure. It's about the fact that, the amount of time they train. Yeah. And if it's your profession, then, you have no other job. That is your job.
Well, I think it's rather unfortunate, but yes, hard luck to our girls, and we look forward to better outings in future competitions. This is not the end of the journey. It's rather unfortunate we couldn't make it through to the group stages proper. But again, like I said earlier, the Champions League redraw.
It's the kind of thing.
Have we ever had a situation like this?
Never. And it's funny because, this is UEFA making the draw, And it's the kind of thing, if it happened in Africa, everybody would say, oh, you see these Africans, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's happened in Europe, the biggest club competition in the world. And it was a complete farce. Really. You know, they'd gone through, they'd even published all, you know, all the supposed teams that were playing each other. And then they had to do the whole thing again because of a technical hitch. And so people who thought they were playing a particular team had already even gone on record as giving quotes about how they thought they would fare. I saw the one from Jürgen Klopp because he thought they were going to be playing Salzburg. He said, you know, obviously we are the favourites. He said, but, you know, we expect a tough game. And then, of course, you know, an hour later, he's having to make a different quote about a different team. So, you know, it's thrown up some intriguing ties. I mean, interestingly, the mistaken draw threw up the intriguing possibility of PSG against Man United, which would have been Ronaldo against Messi, of course. And everybody was getting excited about that. In fact, that was a BBC headline when they thought that was going to be the draw. And of course, it turns out United won't be playing.
Quite incredible development there. But again, now, following the redraw, the only draw, I mean, that remained the same was Chelsea-Lille.
That's right.
So you have Salzburg playing against Bayern, Sporting, well, against City, Benfica, Ajax, Atletico Madrid against Manchester United. I mean, Villarreal, Juventus, Inter Milan, Liverpool, PSG, Real Madrid.
Yeah, you know, this is when you get to a stage and sometimes you hear people saying, there are no easy games in football, which is rubbish. There are easy games in football.
Well, I think Chelsea and Lille. Chelsea, I mean, not because they are defending champions. I think they're clear favourites. Bayern Munich, Salzburg as well.
I mean, if Bayern didn't win that, I think there'll be reverberations around the game. Bayern are in really good form right now. Salzburg, you know, equally, but Bayern are at a different level as well. I think Man United against that's a tough game. Indeed. That's a tough game. And of course, nobody wanted Real Madrid. You know, Liverpool have got Inter, I believe. I think Inter went top of the league over the weekend, Serie A.
They're in top form, really.
Yeah, and in good form. But I think, you know, Liverpool would fancy themselves to beat anybody right now. They're in really good form.
Well, one of the most interesting games that we're all looking forward to is the PSG Real Madrid encounter. Interesting game.
It's, you know, Messi thought he'd seen the back of Real Madrid when he went to Paris. You know, and here he finds himself drawn, you know, not exactly El Clasico. But, you know, but again, you know, that team, Mbappe, Neymar, Messi, I know they're, 13 points clear at the top of Ligue 1. Outside of Ligue 1, they've not impressed really, particularly with that fantastic forward line, one of the best forward lines in Europe potentially. And so, you know, they've not really gelled on the continental stage, at least, you know. But on the home front, of course, they're going to walk away with the league this year.
All right. So, would you fancy to predict between Atletico Madrid and Manchester United?
You know, it's funny. If you'd asked me this 3 weeks ago, when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was the manager, I would have gone for Atletico. But I think since Rangnick came, he's a lot more pragmatic. The fact that we'd gone, I don't know, 40 games and only 2 clean sheets previously, and now in, I don't know, 4 games he's had 2 clean sheets.
The change of manager seemed to have, you know, energized almost.
It's energized most of them, but you know, again on Saturday I talk about clean sheets, but you know, David De Gea, okay, he's a goalkeeper and he had to earn his money, but he made 2 crucial saves against, you know, what was the bottom side in the Premier League. So United still a work in progress, and I think the manager has a heart of it. But you know, like I said, if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had still been there, I would have said, oh, you know, but now, you know, I'd kind of hedge my bets and think, you know, United could probably get a draw and a win.
Well, I'm afraid that is all the time permits, unfortunately, but we look forward to, you know, maybe having you next week again, same time.
I would absolutely love to.
It was a pleasure really having you on the platform. Viewers, I'm afraid that is all about it, but we will be back next week, same time. Until then, thank you for watching.